Kansas has done it before with Mark Mangino, but I think why K-State has held such a strong advantage, obviously fans want to point to, well, they're the more successful program. And that has a lot. Winning helps in recruiting, Kevin.
Sure.
You and I both know that. We're not naive enough to think that it doesn't. But at the same time, I think the reason why K-State has had the level of success that they've had in state is because from Bill Snyder through even Ron Prince at times to Chris Kleiman, there's been a proven track record of this program saying we're going to start in the state of Kansas, we're going to finish in the state of Kansas, whether that be our number one scholarship that we offer in a class to the very, very last preferred walk-on that we're going to fight tooth and nail for.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello, and welcome to the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network, brought to you by Home Field Apparel. I'm Kevin Flaherty, and I'm here with my good friend Ryan Wallace from GoPowerCat.com and 24/7 Sports. And we're talking about the world of local recruiting, from Kansas and Kansas City prospects to the college classes at Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri. This week, we have interviews with two of the top 5 2026 prospects in the state of Kansas after watching Derby's Max Robinson and Maize South's Hunter Higgins go head-to-head. As always, if you like what you're hearing, tell your friends about us, subscribe, hit that like button, or leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple or Spotify. All those things help us to grow the show and help get us in front of more people like you. Ryan, we'll get to Derby Maize South, a 51-7 Derby win that wasn't actually that close, as weird as it sounds,
Yeah.
in a little bit. But first...
siren. Siren.
It's some...
Siren. We got an alert, don't we, Kevin?
We do. We do have an alert. It's Sunflower Showdown week, and we will get to that, especially since those of you who know us know that I went to Kansas. Ryan, of course, went to Kansas State. But that alert, I believe, means that somebody, a big-time prospect in the state, may have chosen where they're going to school. As well as you might be doing, Ryan, you're probably not doing as well as Michigan right now, as the Wolverines landed the commitment of 5-star offensive tackle Andrew Babalola of Blue Valley Northwest. Ryan, we've talked about Andrew quite a bit on the show, and he said from the start he was looking for a school with strong academics and one that could develop him on the gridiron as well. And Michigan certainly checks both those boxes.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the closer we got, deeper into the fall, I guess I would say, because there were some reports earlier on that, he was good to go kind of at the end of summer. And then, some things started to, I guess, push him to delay and maybe just sit down with the folks in his corner. It sounds like it was a pretty good-sized group of folks in his corner that, wanted to have their word and their say-so. And Babs being the person that he is, he wants to make sure that he's dotted every I, crossed every T type of thing. So I think he just wanted to stay a little bit patient and make sure, again, we've seen it time and time again nowadays of, am I making the right choice? But again, getting back to what I was originally saying, which was, it seemed like Michigan was sort of pushing their way in at the end of summer. And I think what it was at the end of summer was a credit to Auburn, credit to Missouri maybe, of making this a little bit tighter when it was all said and done. But Kevin, at the end of the day, I think, you and I made our point here about maybe Stanford being a good fit for him in our opinion. But I think at the end of the day, Michigan brought both the academic side that Stanford had and a better football resume clearly than an Auburn had or that a Stanford would have. So it was the total package for him. Sharon Moore is a former offensive lineman from this area, played high school at Derby. So I think they connected really well. As we found out in our interview with him not long ago, he is familiar with the Michigan area, has family that's up there. So he's got a support system there, even though it's a little bit further from home. And so I think all in all, a solid choice for him. Now it's about kind of getting him in that Michigan mindset that we've talked about, because they're hard-nosed and they're going to chisel him, with all the sharp objects that they can. They're going to break him down to build him up. And if they can do that, and I know Babs is the type to keep his head screwed on there, the potential, as we've said, is through the roof.
Ryan, can we get more siren?
Yes.
All right. I feel like Christopher Walken yelling for more cowbell from Will Ferrell. But in other recruiting news, Olathe South offensive tackle Juju Marks flipped his commitment from Kansas to Nebraska. As we've talked about on the show, Juju's really an intelligent, high potential kid, and now he'll be heading up to Lincoln to play for Matt Rule.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one caught at least me by surprise. I know some folks in our industry that are much tighter to KU than I am saw this one coming. And I don't want to say I was surprised in the sense that I never saw Juju Marks ever thinking about anything other than KU. I mean, we heard that in our interview with him when he was excited to go to the Colorado game, not to see the Jayhawks, but to see Deion Sanders. So, I mean, he's always kind of kept an open eye and been honest about it. But I thought it was a little bit surprising that, we weren't that far removed from having talked to him and, him kind of glowing about the relationship that he had with Coach Leipold and some of the players up there. And but that being said, the minute Jamar Mosey hit Lincoln, you knew that it was going to open some doors here locally. Obviously, his son Keon was initially part of that first kind of person to flip. And now we see Juju Marks, who, again, there's some ties. We've said it on the show before. Juju's very connected both on the Kansas side and the Missouri side. That goes obviously into Lee Summit North area where he was familiar with the Mosey family. And so I think that there's a connection there that Juju feels comfortable with. Nebraska feels comfortable that they're going to get the most out of Juju. We've said it before. It's an honest show. You've got to keep, Juju's head locked on a little bit. Not that he's a wild kid or anything like that. Not that he's not intelligent, as you said. But, you've heard some of the comments and the remarks that he's put out there publicly about, well, they paid me more. There's that kind of side to Juju, I think. And so I think as long, again, as they can kind of break him down to build him back up and have Matt Rule preach about the culture there and the hard work that it's going to take for him to see the field, again, super high ceiling for him. Yep. If he's willing to put in the work and they're willing to be patient with him. And again, I think with Jamar Mosey there, it is kind of a fit that makes a lot of sense for both parties.
Let's use that flip to kind of seg a little bit here into the Sunflower Showdown, where these schools often battle off the field for in-state recruits, guys like Avery Johnson and Devin Neal, both of whom were number one in the state in their respective classes, and they'll be headliners on Saturday. Kansas State, this isn't a secret to anybody, Ryan. They've had more success than Kansas has had in state. And in this class, the Wildcats have a commitment from you and me, our number one player in the state, in Goodland pass catcher Lincoln Cure. What does that commitment and mean for Kansas State, and what is he going to bring to Manhattan?
Well, I mean, he's the freak show. We've talked about a guy like Deshaun Brame, seeing him up close in person. He's freaky. Some of the stuff that you see Jaden Woods do but I think Lincoln Cure is just on a different level in terms of what he brings athletically, in his size and his speed, in the quick progression that we've seen him take, becoming more of a versatile tight end, a guy that's willing to block, a guy that's willing to stretch the field. He can go over the middle and make contested catches. It's not so many times, Kevin, in this area, we see guys that are really maybe elite in one area as a tight end. I think about Will Ancio, another Kansan out of Cape Bend a couple years ago, had that kind of basketball background. And so he had some hops, had, maybe the catch radius, but there were a lot of other things that needed to be fine tuned for him to see the field, about blocking, about route running, getting bigger in the weight room, all those things. Lincoln's kind of already there in just about every area. And so again, as we've said before, as long as the transition from kind of 3A, Goodland, never really been on a kind of strength program and that sort of thing, as long as that takes the same quick progression that we've seen him take in all the other areas of his game and every different sport that he plays, then there shouldn't be too much of a hiccup for Lincoln. And he's the type of kid, like we've seen with Avery, like we've seen with Dylan, that can make a pretty quick impact on the college level in Manhattan.
Probably doesn't hurt that K-State's thrown, I think, 8 touchdown passes to tight ends already this year. having sort of that proof of concept to be able to tap.
And he notices those things.
Lincoln's one of just several Kansans in this class heading to Kansas State, including Babalola's teammate Brock Heath at Blue Valley Northwest, Derby cornerback Martell Jackson, who we're going to talk about here a little bit in a minute, linebackers Ashton Moore and McGuire Richmond of Lewisburg and Blue Valley, respectively. What do you attribute Kansas State's success in State to?
I think it's a long-standing history of being real and having proof, validation that they're very, very serious about this state. And that's not a shot necessarily at Kansas either, because we've seen that program when they've had certain coaches that have really invested time, Mark Mangino. And again, you could kind of make the argument that maybe Mangino knew about the state of Kansas because he spent so much time recruiting it under Bill Snyder at K-State, but that's besides the point. Kansas has done it before with Mark Mangino, but I think why K-State has held such a strong advantage, obviously fans want to point to, well, they're the more successful program. And that has a lot. Winning helps in recruiting, Kevin. You and I both know that. We're not naive enough to think that it doesn't. But at the same time, I think the reason why K-State has had the level of success that they've had in state is because from Bill Snyder through even Ron Prince at times to Chris Kleiman, there's been a proven track record of this program saying we're going to start in the state of Kansas, we're going to finish in the state of Kansas, whether that be our number one scholarship that we offer in a class to the very, very last preferred walk-on that we're going to fight tooth and nail for. They've always made it a point to, again, start their class in Kansas. And again, when they go down and they recruit those guys, they know that it's real because they can pull out the Rolodex of guys and say, look at all these guys that are on our team that we have recruited from the state of Kansas. Before Kansas was the state that produced Avery Johnson, the state that produced Lincoln Cure. I mean, K-State has been doing this when, Echo Boydo was vying for the number one spot, when Tanner Wood was the number one player out of Conway Springs. And that's the other part, Kevin, as I pitch it back to you, is that beyond just the long-standing history of them proving a point, doing it from the start of a cycle to the end of a cycle with scholarships and preferred walk-ons, I think Kansas State does the best job of connecting with high school coaches, players, parents from the western side of the state all the way to the eastern side. It's not just about Kansas City. It's not just about Wichita and Topeka and the more populated areas. I mean, they've got guys on this roster this year from as far west as Lakin and to as far east as, Kansas City, and as far south as Coffeyville, Sabetha, Brewster, six-man football. And I think, again, that goes a long way, not just with the kids, but when they're pitching it to their high school coaches and their parents. And when you don't take a year off, when you have the stretch after stretch after stretch of them investing in the state, it's tough to knock that off if you're a team like Kansas that has had some staffs that have taken some years off.
Yeah, to your point, they say that long-term memory, I think, starts at age 3. And so most recruits grew up without any memory of Kansas having a winning season, and attached to that, without a lot of those staffs even really regarding Kansas as a must-recruit place. A guy who turned 3 the day after Kansas won the 2008 Insight Bowl to finish that 8-win season didn't see Kansas have another winning season until he was 18, or almost 18. And that's not a knock on Kansas. I think that's just to kind of suggest how much Lance Leipold and what that Jayhawks staff is kind of working uphill against with some in-state prospects, because they grew up during a lot of those lean years where not only was Kansas not winning, I mean, there were some of the worst years in Kansas program history, but also not necessarily making the state a priority. And I think you're starting to see that shift a little bit. You're starting to see more emphasis put out it. And one of the things that I think that Kansas is doing better than it did before, Ryan, is they're starting to kind of take swings and be comfortable taking swings on Kansas guys who maybe aren't even the highest recruited guys. They're guys that they like their evaluations and say, hey, this is a guy for us, regardless of who else is in that picture. With the loss of Marks, Kansas has 2 Kansas in the class. You have Axel athlete Brandon Schmelsley, who plays 8-man, kind of does it all. He's going to be a safety at Kansas. And then you have Blue Valley West quarterback Tate Nagy, who's committed to the Jayhawks as a wide receiver. But we've really talked about on this show before how 2026 could kind of be Kansas's chance to make more noise in state than it has in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at, they've got 2 guys in their backyard with Braden Wilmus and Josh Galbraith that could be staples on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball for the future there. And so, to me, they don't have to look far for a head start there. Braden Wilmus has talked about how, he's kind of, I don't want to say grown up, but he's spent plenty of time in the last couple of years in the Fuchs household with Hank and that family. And then obviously they move on. But I think he got to know what Lance Leipold and that staff are about, having spent so much time around, members of the coaching staff. And obviously he's teammates with a ton of guys at Free State that have fathers that are on the Kansas staff. So he seems to be one that they could go get. Josh Galbraith, isn't from Kansas, grew up a little bit in Alabama before he moved to Lawrence, but a guy that admittedly has probably been to a ton of KU basketball games and football games over the years, in a, spitting distance from the campus, kind of growing up in the shadow, you could say. And there are a number of other guys too. Caden Snyder is one that pops to mind as a guy. Ian Premer. I think they're in there right now for Ian Premer. Where they are compared to K-State is kind of up for debate, but I mean, I think he's very solidly looking into KU, just like at this time last year we saw Lincoln Cura doing the same thing. So yep. One other thing to add into what you were saying about 2026 and why maybe it's kind of taken a little bit for KU to get here and towards a class in 2026 that could be kind of one that they can kind of plant their flag in, is that one of the smart things that I think Chris Kleiman did that Lance Leipold didn't, for one reason or another. He's got his guys, but Chris Kleiman kept a guy in Taylor Bratt that I think he knew was valuable in the sense of the amount of connections and kind of how he had watched Bill Snyder orchestrate the state. There were a lot of things that Bill Snyder did with recruiting that K-State fans, K-State recruiting analysts like myself, national analysts, were probably ready to get away from. Let's just be honest. But one thing that Bill Snyder did very well was recruit the state of Kansas. He kind of appointed Taylor Bratt to be that head man, and Chris Kleiman came in and said, this is an area, I got some guys from North Dakota State that have recruited Kansas City before. I need help still just keeping and continuing to cultivate those other relationships outside of some of the territories that we already have connections with. And he kept Taylor Bratt on the staff. And from there, they've just continued to, grow that recruiting department with guys that are familiar with this area. Zach Cox is another guy, local guy, that is now on staff aiding Taylor Bratt. And he helps in a number of different areas outside the state, but he has some familiarity with Kansas as well. Lance Leipold came from Buffalo, didn't have a lot of those connections, even that Chris Kleiman did in Kansas City and North Dakota State. And so they were already kind of playing catch up and trying to do the hi, nice to meet you, let me tell you about myself with every area of the state. And so it's taken them several years before they've gone into coaching offices and stuff. And coaches are like, hey, man, how's it going? And as you've talked about, because I haven't really met them in person, this is a very likable KU staff. And when you and I have gone out and talked to high school coaches, they really enjoy their time with the KU staff, which hasn't always been the case in years past. It's a genuine group, and they've started to get to know that, but it's taken some steps for them to finally get there. And now, on top of that, they add a guy like Leon Douglas, where KU's saying, we might not get all the guys in Western Kansas, but here's a guy that we can say is ours, that is well known throughout the Kansas City community, that's more in our backyard, that's kind of leans more our direction. Let's kind of find our Taylor Bratt. And I think Leon Douglas could be that guy for them in the future in the Kansas City area. They can start to kind of, again, water the Wichita area a little bit and maybe this 2026 class is that starting point for them. They're on the cusp. They've still, like you said, kind of got an uphill climb to compete with the longevity that K-State has. But 2026 might finally be the class that we've been, I say we as kind of the state analysts, but especially KU fans, have been waiting on to be ultra competitive with K-State for some of the top names.
Yeah, you make some great points there. Hey, Ryan, let's make this Sunflower Showdown a little bit interesting. How about a wager? If Kansas State wins, I will wear a Wildcat hat on the next show. And if Kansas wins, you'll put on a Jayhawk hat?
I will put on a Jayhawk hat. We're going purple behind me. I think that's purple.
Okay, we are going purple. You've got all kinds of colors back there.
Maybe, yeah, there we go. Maybe we'll go. We got red. Well, obviously we have red. I did the red earlier. Maybe we can do this if you're lucky enough next week. Otherwise it's this bad boy right here.
Oh,
but yes,
you're going to make me look at that all show too. I get it. I definitely get it. Well, hey, we'll have our prospect breakdowns from the game that we attended and interviews coming up. But first, let's hear from you over at the KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile. If you have any questions or comments for us here at Verbal Commitment, shoot us a text over at 913-407-6524, and we may just talk about it on the show. We also want to tell you about our friends over at Home Field Apparel. The Midwest weather is doing its Midwest weather thing, which means it's in the 80s one day, and a frost advisory is soon to follow. And Home Field Apparel has the gear to make you look cool when it's hot out and feel warm when those temps take a major dip. Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri all have more than 40 items apiece to choose from. So head over to homefieldapparel.com and use the promo code linked below in the description. You can get 15% off your first order. We'll be right back.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com. It can be such a pain to deal with big wireless providers, and what you see is almost never what you get. Just when you think you've had your right price, your bill will magically skyrocket with unexpected overages and hidden fees. So when Mint Mobile says you can get $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So you can say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plan's jaw-dropping monthly bills with Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. And if you're worried about using your own phone and keeping your phone number and your contacts, you can do all of that when you switch with Mint Mobile. So ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNVC. That's mintmobile.com/KCSNVC. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSNVC. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
And we're back with the Verbal Commitment Podcast, sponsored by Home Field Apparel. Let's get into our unsung star of the week. In this case, Ryan, it's a favorite of mine, but I'll let you lead off with your breakdown. Derby safety, James Middlebrook.
I won't say a whole lot here because I really want to give the floor to you. You are the fan club, flag bearer for James Middlebrook. And I finally got to see it, kind of got a taste of that on Friday night. Man, he is a fun player to watch. For Derby folks out there reminds me a lot of another unsung, undersized defender, and Jose Delgado. I'm going way back to some of my early years here. A lot of folks thought he was a little bit too small to compete at the higher levels. He ends up at Fort Hays State and was I think, top 3 all time in tackles by the time his career was done. Kevin, James Middlebrook's got that kind of tenacity to him and just consistent. Great speed and very consistent as a defender.
Yeah, I love him. He's a sawed-off guy. I don't know how much taller than 5'8" he is, but man, Ryan, he can really run. He can really move. You can see the speed at play in some of these clips, and the ball skills. You can see him returning kicks. He's really good. He's a guy that can get over the top as a safety and make plays in the passing game. if he were 6 feet tall, I think he would be one of the most highly recruited guys in the state. As it is, he's one of my favorite players to watch in the state, and we got to see him play pretty well on Friday night.
No doubt about it. I'll look forward to keeping the highlight tape of him. Again, we're the team fun tape, and James Middlebrook has some fun tape. So yeah, keep it up, James. Really impressive kid, and let's just say it how it is. I mean, if you're if you're wanting him as a PWO, I think that there's a chance that he could pan out as an FBS player because he's got the athletic traits. If not, if that's not happening, MIAA schools, FCS schools, where are you? Knock on the door for James Middlebrook right now.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. But then you knew that, given that that I walk onto a derby field and I'm immediately looking for where James Middlebrook is, kind of geeking out a little bit. Of course, the biggest reason we went down there was to see two of the top players in the state square off, and Max Robinson and Hunter Higgins didn't disappoint. Yeah, no, I mean, it was tough because, again, after half, neither one of them really played that much because the score was what it was. But in the action that we got to see, I thought it was pretty competitive. Maybe a stalemate, honestly. I mean, there were some reps where I liked what I saw from Hunter. There were some reps where I liked what I saw from Max. They both, checked the boxes physically, I thought. And everything that we previewed about Hunter, having a little bit quicker first step, there were snaps where we saw that. We saw him, pursue the ball with some quickness. With Max, we got to see some of the agility that he had in handling a guy like Hunter off the edge. So I was really, pleased with both of them. It wasn't a showing, if you're Mays South and you're Hunter Higgins, I'm sure he kind of left there going like that really wasn't the game that I would have preferred, the KCSN 247 type guys to be there for. But honestly, there wasn't a game that I would knock either him or Max Robinson for. I thought both of them lived up to the billing of being top 3 to 5 players in the state next year. Yeah, I thought one of the things that we'll hear in a little bit, interviews with both of those guys, Max Robinson seems to have a very real idea about what he is, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of guys that play offensive tackle now, he probably needs to grow a little bit more to stick at offensive tackle. And from that, I mean, from a height standpoint, Dad's really tall. He said Dad was 6'7", 6'8", and so there's a chance that Max winds up being pretty tall as well. But he also he came out and said that, right? He said, "Hey, my best position's probably a guard unless I grow, in which case I'm a tackle." Ryan, I saw the traits in Max that I really think he could be successful at either position with how athletic he is in particular.
Well, like I said in last week's episode, I mean, if he is a guard at the next level, even a 6'6" guard, we're seeing some of that, right, in today's day and age of college football. You're not going to have a problem with him there because he's got that mauler mentality. Yeah. And at the same time has, as we talked about, the footwork where you can have him pull and get up to the second level, similar to what we saw from like a Cooper Beebe, and have no problem doing it and be, immensely productive at, those next level blocks. So again, Max is the type of guy to me that you really can't go wrong with. And that's why, as I think you'll hear in the interview, there are some big time players that are starting to come on the scene for him, as if they weren't already.
I really wanted to get your thoughts as well on Derby cornerback Martell Jackson, who's committed to Kansas State. A chance to see him in full pads. Unfortunately, didn't get to see him for a full game, but we did get to see him enough to kind of see, hey, this is what this guy looks like in these situations, and do so against a Mays South team that, to be quite frank, is really good throwing the ball on an average Friday.
Yeah, Tate McNew didn't have a ton of time to make some of the downfield passes that I wanted to see Martell's speed kind of get unleashed a little bit and covered deep routes. We didn't get a chance to do that because I thought McNew was under pressure. And then when he wasn't under pressure, we did get a little bit of that Martell Jackson lockdown type stuff. But again, I'd seen a little bit of that in 7-on-7. You actually pointed out during the game kind of an element that we both wanted to see from Martell, because Maize South was so limited in what they could do vertically. A lot of their offense, when they were able to move the ball here and there, was either on the ground or very short kind of passing stuff that allowed Martell to come up in run support and kind of come downhill and make tackles. We saw a physical element to him. There's still clearly the need for his body to fill out, and K-State's going to take care of that. But just kind of being able, he may not be RJ Collins. He might not have that kind of dog in him where he's like, reckless abandon towards making a tackle, but he definitely doesn't have a problem getting his nose dirty. So I liked seeing that side of Martell, and I think that'll translate once he gets in the room with Van Malone.
RJ Collins has absolutely no regard for his own safety. I mean, in his mind, I think he thinks that he's 250 pounds. When
he does.
Like there's something very right from a football standpoint, but also maybe slightly mentally wrong with him, that he just, for whatever reason, he was born without that trigger that says, hey, I shouldn't be hitting people like this because I'm small.
Speaking of small guys, can we talk about the other small guy in this game?
I think we were heading there, Ryan.
Okay, I didn't mean to step on your toes there.
No. Let's take a jump into 2027 and Derby running back Arius Finley, member of our All Fun film team.
Yes,
Ryan, when we were there, we talked with Coach Clark, and he mentioned we'll be talking about him for a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, he's short, folks. I mean, he is short, but he is lightning in a bottle. And again, you talk about Team Fun Tape. Some of the cuts in these highlights are just astounding. It is that Chris Berman, like, whoop. I mean, this highlight right here should have been tackled, should have gone out of bounds. And then the acceleration. That's the other thing that you're going to see from him that you just can't do it justice until you see it in person. Watch this, Kevin. Look at this one. That's on Hayes. Sorry to the Hayes Indians for that one. But again, the acceleration, I don't know if some of these clips even do it justice, because his ability to go from 0 to 60 is ridiculous. And, I think obviously just his stature is going to keep some teams at bay. But when you see what he can do in the flesh, I think his ability to continue to progress as a receiver, although they didn't need it, on Friday night against Maize South, the more he can become a receiver, I think the folks in Derby are going to immediately go to Dylan Edwards. They're a little bit different style. To me, Kevin, and again, we're in Sunflower Showdown week, and so I'm kind of in that K-State mindset. There is Deuce Vaughn elements to him. Yeah. In his ability, the jump cuts especially, and the quickness, probably doesn't have the Dylan Edwards breakaway speed. Deuce didn't either. But the kind of phone booth type stuff that he's able to do and make you miss is very reminiscent to me of Deuce Vaughn. And again, if Deuce Vaughn if Deuce Vaughn and other guys of that stature can prove that it's possible, I think Arius Finley is the type of guy that can prove it's possible, so long as he cements himself elite in one area. Maybe that's the jump cuts. Maybe that's him elevating the track times and 40 speed or what have you. If he can prove that he can be elite in one thing, I think more and more coaches will be able to get past the height once they see him in person, because it's something to behold, man.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and another sort of check mark in the Deuce Vaughn category. He's a lot thicker than Dylan was at the same stage. And so he's built a little bit more differently, built more powerfully, I guess. But yeah, I see that comparison really well because of the way he cuts, because of the way he can change direction. The vision is there, but also just the agility and acceleration to be able to put what he sees into practice. It's special, and it's really special for 2027 at this point. I mean, he may be the best running back in the state right now, and he's a 2027 kid, and so that's pretty staggering.
Well, and I'm going to say, hand raised, when we were watching him in warm-ups, I turned to you and I was like, Kevin, he's short. And then we got into the game, and the more I've thought about it since Friday night, I don't care anymore. Like, he has that level of just like vision and the feel for like where tackles are coming, and that natural ability to jump cut and then just turn on the gas. he can make it somewhere. He's going to make it somewhere. And I don't mean like, well, I'm not going to name a program and like, put them down in that nature, but he can make it somewhere big time. I think he just needs somebody to give him that chance. Because Kevin, like you said, there's stuff about him that's really special, and he will be probably the best back in that class. Maybe there's somebody out there we don't know about yet, but right now he's far and away the best back in that class. And like you said, debatably the best tailback in the state right now.
Yeah, this could also be the best Derby team that we've seen in the last several years. And I'll be quite frank with you, Ryan. I know we're getting a little long in the tooth on this segment, but Deshaun Brame, just that kid gets better every time we see him.
Yeah, I mean, we said it on the show last week. I was pretty upfront about it. Like, if Deshaun Brame has the type of start equal or better to Lincoln Cure, it won't surprise anybody that's seen Deshaun Brame play this season. He's massive. His ability to show off like the catch radius, and then again, I cannot praise him enough for what he's doing in terms of how he's improved his speed. I don't know if it's acceleration. I don't know if it's him understanding his stride a little bit better and maybe just kind of growing into his body. Or folks, if there's anybody in the Derby, Wichita area, and you are trying to work through strength and speed training, specifically speed, I'll get on the horn with Deshaun Brame and ask him what he did and who he works with. Maybe it's Coach Clark again. Maybe it's James Tabor. I don't know. Get on the phone with Deshaun Brame and figure out what he did to improve his speed, because to me, that is what has set him apart and made him, if Lincoln Cure is the top tight end in the country, Deshaun Brame is like 1B. I mean, that kind of year right now in the state of Kansas, Deshaun is unreal player. He's going to have a lot of fun in that Tennessee offense.
That brings us to our prospect pit stop for this week, or in this case, prospect pit stops, as we will be heading to Tonganoxie to see the Chieftains at home against Ottawa before heading over to catch the second half of the city showdown between Lawrence and Lawrence Free State. We've talked about the two Lawrence schools quite a bit, and we will again post-city showdown and seeing those guys square off. But here, Ryan, I'm really interested to hear what you think of 2026 Ottawa wideout Nate Sims.
Yeah, I mean, it was important for me to get out and see Nate Sims relatively close to Tyron Parker. I think they'll end up being separated by maybe 3-4 weeks, because I wanted to get a better comparison of kind of the two premier wide receivers in that class that we know about right now for 2026. And it was long overdue for us to see Nate Sims. When you watch his highlights, Kevin, it's a little different. I mean, he has speed. I mean, the traits are there. But he's a guy that maybe I'm curious to see in person if he builds it deeper. It might not be right out of the gates like a Bryson Hayes at Mays. He might be a guy, that seems to build more speed as it happens. But I think his ability to track the ball and win contested catches, like you just saw in that highlight, is something that shows up again and again and again. I think the route running is coming along, but I'm really interested to see, as he breaks a couple tackles here, that part of his game, the body, how able he is to withstand contact, because obviously Tyron Parker's a big individual. And I'm also interested to see kind of that level of speed that he possesses. Again, I think we've heard about it through testing and things at KU camp, at K-State camp. We know it's there. It doesn't show up that often on tape. I want to see if maybe I'm just not seeing something on tape that does exist there, because Lance Leipold and Chris Kleiman's staff did not waste any time to recruit, offer, and continue to pursue a young man in Ottawa that, hasn't been traditionally strong when it comes to football recruiting. The last Ottawa Cyclone that I can think of is Simi Ojale.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that was obviously on the hardwood. So I'm excited to see Nate Sims. I think he's got a lot of polish to him. I would be surprised if I come out of the game, Kevin, and you and I aren't looking at each other going, yeah, he's probably a little bit further along than Tyron Parker. But, I want to see again kind of how polished, how balanced he is as a receiver, so that we can get a better idea of, again, that whole 1A, 1B type situation that we talked about with Cure and Brame. It's starting to maybe cultivate itself a little bit in 2026 with Nate Sims and Tyron Parker, fairly or unfairly.
Yeah, Tyron Parker kind of has that classic, outside receiver build, long and really explosive kid as well. Sims is a little bit shorter. He's about 6 feet tall or so, but he's also been clocked as fast as, 10-7 in the 100 meters. Like you said, we've seen guys who have been really good in track that have been more builders that separate, say, from 60 to 100 yards, which doesn't help you as much on a football field. And we've also seen guys that have gotten up to top speed really quickly. I'm interested to see which way his speed kind of goes on the football field. And like you said, also to see the polish and kind of see some of the things that come along with that. We will be back in just a minute with our interviews with Hunter Higgins and Max Robinson, two of the top players in 2026.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Welcome back to the Verbal Commitment Podcast, sponsored by Home Field Apparel. Last Friday, Ryan and I made the trek down to the Wichita area to see Derby host Maize South. After the game, we chatted with Maize South defensive end Hunter Higgins, currently ranked as the number 4 player in the state of Kansas for 2026. He spoke about his recruitment and what's yet to come this fall.
For me, it's still up in the air. I've had some different coaches press me a little bit more, and have the questions: why not here? Why not there? And they're really starting to press on this is what we do well. Why why not us? So it's kind of sped up my stuff a little bit more. When I might make a decision, but still weighing stuff out. Still some places I need to see. So I'm enjoying it all. I mean, it's fun. I know it's going to go away sometime, so I'm trying to enjoy it while it's here. So, still taking it slow, but also a little quicker on my decision, I think, than before.
You mentioned some of the places you'd like to see if given the opportunity. Or what are some of those schools you'd like to make it out to? You think the calendar kind of allows for it?
Yeah, I need to see a Wisconsin game. I've had a lot more conversations with Coach Mitchell, and he's a great dude. He has a culture. You can just tell. He really has a good group around him, and how they started off their season compared to now. I give a lot of credit to him, really. And then Michigan, they definitely started off rough, QB battle. Kind of some questions in the air, but I think they're in the right direction. So I need to see a game in the big house. That's going to be sweet. So if the schedule allows for it, that's what I'm going to do. Those are 2 places right now. There's a couple others, but I'm not sure, how travel could work. So
local schools, KU, Nebraska, K-State. What about those 3 right now stand out? And have you been to any of those campuses yet? Or do you have any plans to get to them soon?
Yeah, so all 3 I've been to. I say it all the time. I grew up a K-State fan, but the biasness, I still weigh it out like every other school. They do a great job with everything, but they do a really good job. They obviously the fans, the town, they want that comeback to what they used to be. KU, they want a football program like they've never had, or kind of early mid-2000s. They want that back. There's stuff with all of them, and I really like all of them. You can't go wrong. But all 3 of those, they're returns for me. They're places I'm going back to, and nothing but good things to say for them.
When are you going back to those 3? In the fall?
This season? I'll be going. So I'm going KU K-State game in Manhattan. I'm going to UCLA, Nebraska. And as far as those 3 right now, I'll be seeing KU play. It's not going to be a game for them, but I'm still going to see all 3 again.
Sure. What schools would you say right now do you feel like are showing you the most interest? You mentioned there's some schools that are already pressing you, but just in terms of communication, where you're feeling the love from, are there any that stand out from that regard?
Yeah. It's different types of communication. That's a hard thing to say. I would say there's the schools around here, I get mail like crazy from them. I mean, and then some schools maybe like the USC, the Michigan, even Nebraska, they're more phone calls and stuff. So, I mean, you prefer one or the other. I don't really care. It's interest in me, and so they're taking the time to send that paper to make the phone call. So, it's really pretty balanced. I mean, maybe the schools around here have a little bit of an edge with that, but I mean, all the schools that most of them that have offered me, I would say, are really giving me a lot of love. So,
what are you looking for? Like when we look back and we say, hey, you picked this school because of blank, what's going to be the blank?
Yeah, I mean, especially with how everything's going and how much change is going on in college football, I think a developed place. There's definitely some high money schools that can get who they want. The development might not be as much of a priority. So, I mean, I had a tough off season. I had an injury, wasn't able to get in the weight room. So the play is on the field is seeing a little bit of lack of strength, and the development, they're going to get me right. They're going to the development is what I'm looking for most. But I mean, I love the fan atmosphere, and with games, that's a big thing for me, is just the support, being loved as much as you love that place, not just being thrown in the mix. And then, I mean, really academics, I need to have a backup plan. I mean, it's best case, I play, 5 years after college, but it's so short. I need a good backup plan with academics, so that's important for me too.
You talked about the weight room a little bit. Do you have sort of any size or strength goals, kind of as you move forward? I know you're 26, you got time. But,
yeah.
But do you
definitely
have anywhere you'd like to get to?
Weight really isn't, to me, the concern. I think I can hold weight pretty good. I mean, you see, 240 DNs all the time right now. They're kind of get into that hybrid where they're a little bit faster outside backer or DN, and really for me, I think speed. I mean, I need to have that explosiveness with the strength, but speed is going to be really important for me. I mean, this offseason is going to be really important for me. I mean, we got a fun set of games coming up, but I'm also, I'm looking forward to really being able to put that work in, recover, and just see where it takes me.
Then we flipped to the other side of the ball, talking to 4-star Derby offensive tackle Max Robinson, the number 2 player in the state for 2026. Here's what he had to say about Derby's big win and where his recruitment sits. Here's a hint. It's starting to grow pretty quickly. So, Max, 5-1 team you guys just played, and obviously you were able to jump out. What did you guys do really well today?
I feel like we were just able to establish that run game early. Coach, we were running it a lot this week, trying to see if we could really squeeze it in, because we knew the pass game was going to be open, how it was, but we just wanted to dominate in the run game, show them that we could do it all around.
What did you think of the matchup with Hunter, obviously?
It was good. Hunter's a great DN. I just feel there's just levels. I feel like I'm a little higher than him. It's just nothing personal. It's just hard work.
For somebody who hasn't seen you play, how would you describe your game to us?
Aggressive, for sure. I like being aggressive. I like getting nice, and I like effort. I like keep going. Even if the play's on the other side of the field, I keep working on the other side of the field just to get work and just be better. Try to get better at the game.
How do you feel like you're better from last year?
I'm more confident, because last year I was still just iffy about stuff, but now I'm confident. I'm ready this year I feel just ready to just take it all the way to state this year.
Now, you got some early recruiting attention, obviously. Where's that at? Who are you hearing from at this point? Who are your offers, I guess? Probably.
I got offers from Minnesota, Auburn, Utah, Iowa State, Arkansas, Texas A&M, K-State, KU, all of them. I've been hearing from Ole Miss. They've been keeping in touch with me. I've heard little things from Tennessee. I heard a little bit of everything. But, yeah, they're all reaching out. They're all showing love, for sure.
Does Deshaun have getting in here about Tennessee a little bit?
He's whispered a little things, but nothing's official.
Is there anybody that maybe you're hearing more from, somebody who's putting in a lot of effort into communication right now?
KU for sure. They've been texting me every day. OU been texting me. Me and Beaton Ball text. Me and him are real close. I love Beaton Ball. Mizzou, Texas A&M. Ole Miss been texting me a little bit, and yeah, that's really like the main pressure. But they're all sending me stuff and stuff like that. It's just.
Do you have any plans to get out and see anybody?
Yeah, next week I'm going to the I forgot what it's called, Tom Lemming from CBS Sports. I'm going to that, and I'm going to go to the K-State game. I'm pretty sure it is. I might be mistaken, but yeah, we're going to go watch that. But I'm excited for that, and then I'm planning to go somewhere next week after that just to watch somebody.
Okay. What are you looking for in a school?
Just family-oriented, just like a close bond between players and the coaches, just because I don't really work well individually. I like having a family to help me, support me, have my back when I do something wrong, and get on me when I'm doing wrong.
We've talked on the show about could you be a tackle, could you be a guard? Is there a spot you feel more comfortable with?
Well, I feel comfortable everywhere. I could really go anywhere. I feel comfortable at like guard though. I've been realistic. I'll probably be guard. If I keep growing, I could go to tackle. But guard is probably the one that I'm most like for sure on. I'm comfortable in there. I'm good at that and all that.
Is that for the most part where most of the coaches have been talking to you about, or are they leaving it more open?
They leaving it open, but they saying guard, center, but I'm kind of swinging towards guard a little bit.
I love asking guys this question, but is there anybody that you like watching on Saturdays or Sundays, a guy that you try and kind of model out there in the trenches?
Yeah, I like, well, if I'm being honest, my family, we're not really a big college football family, but we're a like NFL family, and I love watching Trent Williams. I love watching how aggressive he is, his feet. That's like my model. Like, that's why I try to be like every game, just how aggressive. I love how aggressive he is. Like, I watch his film, Lane Johnson, watch him. All the greats.
If you had it your way, how soon would your recruitment, end? Do you see it before your senior year? Do you see it kind of going into your senior year?
Probably a little bit going in. I don't know. I need to talk. Me and my family need to talk about it a little more. But I feel like more going into my senior year, just making a final decision, sticking with it, and then play the season out. So I don't have to really worry about it during the season.
Did you expect this Derby team to be this good in the preseason?
Yeah, for 100%. This summer we were working. It's just I felt it's like something. This team's special. I felt as soon as we stepped on that field in the summer, I knew we were going to be something special. I love we're all close, tight. I knew this team was going to be special for sure.
Thanks to all of you for watching and listening to the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on KCSN. If you like what you've seen or heard, leave us a like, subscribe, or hit us with a 5-star rating. And until next time, we'll see you on the trail, and take care.